Hey, Joey, how's it going?
Great. How are you?
I'm good. I know last week we had me on as a very special guest, so I think we're going to turn the tables and we're going to go ahead and talk about your story with divorce.
Okay, I'm ready.
Are you ready?
I guess.
Let's go talk about it.
All right, let's talk about it.
Joie and Mandy, everything divorce related. We can put the S back in your ex appeal. Joie and Mandy, the friends you didn't know you needed on my ex appeal. And everything divorce podcast.
Hi, guys, and welcome to my Ex Appeal, your Everything Divorce podcast. My name is Joey Camaro, and I'm here with
Mandy Baker.
And we are the friends that you didn't know you needed. If you're listening for the first time, welcome. And if you're coming back and listening again, welcome back, bitch. You know what I'm saying?
We are here. We're here, Joey. You ready to have the spotlight turned on you?
Mm-hmm.
You are?
I am.
So let me, we're just going to jump right in, listeners, and talk to Joey. Last week we talked about my journey. And again, we're not here to bash our exes. And it's more than that. It's a story that lives with you because it's your personal story. But Joey, how long has it been since you've been divorced?
Years and years. I don't even know.
Are you going to be okay diving back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please. I might forget some stuff, but
that's okay.
Yeah.
That's all right. So going into what are some of the biggest challenges that you remember facing when you were going through your divorce?
I remember challenge-wise, emotionally, I remember just the thing that comes to mind is scared. And I don't even, if I think back, I don't even know why I was scared. I was just scared. I felt like for years, we shared finances. I, at the time, wasn't making a lot of money. And I just remember thinking, I'll never be able to go through this. Like, I can't even understand logistically how this works. Like, how do I live on my own? I can't even imagine. So I think the biggest challenge was for me to wake up and say, like, bitch, this is how you have to live. Like, these are the things that you need to do. I almost just ignored it for years.
Really?
Yeah. So for me, the thought of living on my own, even though I've been always a very independent person, but the thought of how am I going to not live in a paper bag?
Yeah.
Thinking back, that was my biggest challenge. And then my kids, like making sure that they're okay was challenging as well.
That is scary, having that financial, I don't want to say dependence because I've always known you to be working, but having that extra financial security.
Girl, we worked in the fitness industry. Ain't no money in there.
I know there's no money in there, but the hustle was there. Like, you had hustle behind you. There wasn't, the Joey I know wasn't going to sit down and be like, I'm not going to work. How am I going to make this?
Yeah, I knew that I was going to have to work more, but the initial, wow, like, been working in the fitness industry for so long and you teach like 1 million classes and you make like $30 a class. And then we were training. We were master trainers, so we were traveling around everywhere and we paid for everything ourselves. So I was in debt, actually.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So I was not only not making money, I was in debt at the time. So I was like, how do I move on from this and have a better life for myself when I don't even know how I would live on my own?
So how did you cope? How did you find strategies to cope with that fear?
I think we just taught, him and we're actually very close. We've always been close. And going through the divorce, we decided together that we were going to stay friends. I mean, it wasn't unicorns and rainbows and we fought all the time, but our marriage was different. We just kind of grew apart. There wasn't a lot of fighting, but we knew we were going to stay friends, and we actually were taking care of each other. So, we actually helped each other get out of it. So it was just an open conversation. And that was the scariest thing. Because I think with spouses, the reason why they get into sticky situations is because there's no open and honest communication. And we were like, fuck it. Like from here on out, it's just going to be open and honest. And he went with me to the apartment complex to look at an apartment. And we kind of decided together, this is what you need to move into this apartment. This is how much money you're going to need. Can you do this monthly? And then he was buying a house off of a friend. So he got a really good deal off that house. And we were just like, okay, can you live in this house? And what do you have to do to upgrade this house? And how much money is that going to take? So we kind of did it together a little bit. But for the kids mostly, because our kids had to go to those two places and live like that. So I guess it was just a matter of sitting down and have an open and honest conversation with my ex.
And do y'all still use that with, well, your kids are older now, but when you had children in high school and middle school, were you guys able to co-parent that way?
Oh, yeah. We're always. Yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm a better parent.
Obviously.
I'm just kidding. Well, I'm kidding, but I'm not kidding. I'm just a better person. But no, we're good at co-parenting. I think it hasn't been the smoothest road as co-parents, but it definitely, I think we do a pretty good job at co-parenting for the most part through these years.
So if you guys leaned on each other, I would imagine that you also had friends and a network of support where you could go talk about how you were feeling. Because I'm assuming you kind of hit that from him in order to stay strong. I don't know. I'm just asking.
So yeah, no. I mean, I have my friends. I have friends that we've met through our old job that I became really, really close with. But I also have a group of girls that I've known since, the first grade, some of them. And so they were really, really, really supportive. Almost like they're the type of friends that it's not like, oh my God, you're going through a divorce, I'm coming over with pizza. It wasn't like that. It's just, they're just like every day support you no matter what's going on. If you have a hangnail, they're going to be supportive. So yeah, I think it was really important to have my friends and my family around. It was definitely, you definitely need some friends or somebody.
For sure. Yeah. For sure. And then now post-divorce, you and Mock, my
new husband,
your new husband, have a divorce mediation company. So what brought you to that? What was the journey through that? And what advice do you wish you had received going through it?
Oh,
now that you're on the other end.
So emotionally, I wish that I wish that I saw a therapist at the time, because I was not seeing a therapist at the time, which is very a terrible thing for me, because I have diagnosed panic disorder, anxiety, and OCD are like the biggest things that I have. And, people who are like, oh, it just gives me anxiety. I'm like, you have no idea what anxiety is unless you're actually diagnosed with a panic disorder. So I am easily rattled and, easily anxious. So going through it, if I could go back in time, I would have had a therapist guide me through the whole thing. I know that for a fact. Emotionally, I needed that. I was relying on, we just talked about relying on people and relying on my ex and relying on friends. I think I relied on people too much when I should have been kind of doing a clean break on my own and getting through things on my own. And that a therapist would have helped me with that. So if I could go back, I would get a therapist right away. But as for the process, I think that I wish that I knew that it was negotiations. We collaborated really well, but there were a lot of things that I didn't understand and I didn't know. And I didn't know the laws for a lot of things that I probably should have taken the time to research. Now, him and I were so close that I just was like, whatever you say, like, I'm good with that. Oh, you want to do it that way? Okay, cool. And maybe not have been so laid back about everything, a guide, a guide with my mental health and a guide through the divorce would have been, and that's what we try. And that's back to your question about what brought us to having a mediation company was that as mediators, I went through mediation. I had a mediator. So it's not like I went to an attorney and he went to an attorney. We went to an attorney who mediated for us. Mm-hmm. But she definitely, I'm not saying that somebody has to be warm and fuzzy because I'm not, she wasn't warm and fuzzy. So I'm not saying she had to like give me hugs and, give me ice cream when I left, but she didn't guide us through the process. It was just like, here's some paperwork, fill this out. Here are your financials, fill those out. This is what you need to do. This is what she needs to do. This is how much you have to pay. This is how much you have to pay. We're going to submit to the court. You're going to go to the courthouse that day and done. Like that's how the process went. It wasn't like, well, what do you feel like? What do you want? He just said this. Is that what you want? And vice versa. We never had that. And that's why we do this now is because going back, that's the big, huge piece that I missed out of this whole thing. Was that no one guided us. I shouldn't just say me, him too. Nobody guided us through the process.
Right. It was almost like what you're saying sounds to me like just buying a car.
Yeah. And no one shows you the inside of the car.
Yeah, that's weird.
They're like, what kind of car do you want? And you're like, I want a Mustang. And then a Mustang shows up at the door and nobody tells you anything about it. They're just like, here's the keys. Bye.
Bye.
That's what it was. So like I felt so blindsided by everything after, like, oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that was going to happen. Or even going to the court that day, I was like, oh, I didn't. This sounds so stupid, but I felt like and not every state has to go to court, by the way, but I'm in Massachusetts and you have to go to court. I didn't know that I was going to have to wait in line. I know that sounds so dumb, but like, I was like, I thought we were going to be in and out, but we had to wait in this long line of other people getting divorced. And then when we got in the room, you're in an open court.
Oh gosh.
And there's rows and rows of people going up to the judge. They just call your name and you walk up to the judge and he loudly talks to you about your divorce in front of all these people behind you. And so leading up to it, I'm watching the other people talk and I'm like, I was trying not to listen because I was like, this is terrible that I have to hear these people's like private matter,
Yeah.
So stuff like that, just little things like, why didn't someone help us with that? That irritates me.
Yeah. Or even prepare you.
Yeah. Coach us a little bit.
That would be awful. Oh, that would freak me out.
Yeah, I know. My ex-husband was he gets really he's like a nervous guy. He was so nervous going in there. And I'm like, will you calm down? Like, stop. You're making me nervous. And so he was so him and I didn't, by the way, we didn't get divorced for years.
Really?
Years. Like,
oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Like y'all just lived a separated life?
Yeah. So because it's, what's so funny about divorce, Mandy, and I'm sure you feel this way, is like, you can't judge somebody's relationship because sometimes you see people get a divorce and they move on right away. And you're like, what? Like, how'd they do that? And you're like, you have no idea. Like, people live married. Like, him and I were very close. So we went everywhere together. Right? So it's shocking to people when you get a divorce, but you're like, but you don't know what's going on behind closed. We've been friends for years under the same roof, right?
That's very different than a married relationship.
It's very different, right? And so that now when we decided to, I guess, divorce, right? We went our separate ways. But it was like one of those things where we're like, we get along, everything's going fine. Like, no one's like, we're good. And we were like, that's just all the paperwork that we have to do. And we just kept putting it off. And it was like, wow, a year has gone by. And then we're like, oh, wow, 2 years have gone by. We haven't even got a divorce yet. Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How did y'all manage the finances? Did y'all just cut ties and just financially live separate lives as well?
Yeah, we sold our house. We split the equity. That happened right away. I went into an apartment. He bought his house in his name, and we closed up our bank accounts.
Wow.
And we just lived separately. And when it came to the kids, we would just, pay for whatever.
Oh my gosh.
I know. It sounds so dumb, but
no, it really doesn't. It really doesn't sound dumb. For me, it sounds a little bit more comforting because you were able to kind of, I don't want to say test the waters on what it felt like to be divorced, but it was almost like, okay, I can do this. Okay, I've got this. Okay, now I can move, instead of just that linear roller coaster that I talked about earlier. Instead of going through that all at the same time, to me, it sounds more not easier. It's never easy.
No, right. But
it's
I know
never
what you mean.
easy.
It was like we understood the assignment, though. Meaning we understood. I don't know that our kids didn't know that we weren't divorced. Like we didn't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't think they listened to this, but if they did, it was out of pure laziness, to be completely honest with you, that we didn't get a divorce. It was out of laziness of doing paperwork that we were just like, we have to get this done type of thing. But we created a parenting plan, and we tried to stick to that parenting plan as much as possible because we wanted our kids to have structure, and because we both knew that we wanted to live our lives. So we couldn't just have them live with me all the time and then just be like, go to your dad's whenever you want. We needed to have we were out and, trying to live a new life. So you have to do that without your kids, unless you have to have your kids all the time. I'm not saying some people don't have that option. So I was, honestly, I had that option. So that was good that he was there, but we knew he was on dating apps and, and it's not normal, but he would FaceTime me with his outfit before he went on a date. Does this look okay? Type of thing. So,
wow.
Yeah, but you had to have parenting time. So he's not going to be going on a date with the kids there. They were young and they didn't understand this was going on. They would be like, where are you going? You know? But yeah, so we had a parenting plan. It just wasn't approved by a court. Okay.
And then did y'all roll that same parenting plan into your mediation because it was working?
Yeah, yeah. And by that time, our kids were getting just used to, knowing where.
Whatever you guys, yeah.
Yeah, they knew, they understood that by that time. But yeah, no, and by the time we went into mediation, we had both moved on. Yeah. So we did have some sticking points in those mediations because, finances will make anybody fight. I don't care how well you get along, but once you start bringing in finances, there were there were some sticky points in those mediations, for sure.
It's always it comes down to the livelihood of your family, and that's a big part of it.
Yeah,
it's a big part of it.
Yeah.
Well, how did you, going back to when you would have that alone time and you would have the kids would be with him, how did you prioritize your self-care and your well-being? You weren't seeing a therapist, so how did you balance all of that out?
I tried to, so I don't do well alone with my own thoughts, so it was very difficult. I tried to go out as much as possible and do things as much as possible because sitting home and staring at the ceiling for me isn't good for me on a good day. Yeah. So I know some people, I've talked to people that they love alone time, they take a bath and they hang out by themselves and read a book. My mind is not, that just makes my mind race. So, we were living in an apartment at the time. And so being home, I was just like, meh, I just try to go out as much as possible and do things as much as possible.
Okay, so just keeping your mind busy.
Yeah, I had to keep my mind busy, for sure.
For sure. Could you imagine, this is kind of an off subject, but could you imagine, and I pray for those people who went through a divorce during COVID, who had no option to go out and had no option. The world shut down. Their world is changing, and then the world shuts down.
I can't.
I know.
I can't imagine.
I know.
Feel so sorry for, I think anybody who was going through a tough time with anything at that point, or maybe they were contemplating divorce and now they're stuck inside with that person. Yeah, I can't even imagine what people went through.
But I feel like the two of you could have done it because y'all were getting along. Y'all just would live East Wing, West Wing.
There was one time that, so I was in my apartment, and the first year that we were split up, that winter was very snowy. We had a very, very snowy winter. And there was a snowstorm that was going to like pull out electricity. And I'm like, I'm in an apartment with the kids. Like, what am I going to do? So I went to his house for the night, slept on his couch, and I ended up being there for like 3 days.
Oh my gosh.
Because when I tell you, this was like a blizzard, and it was like a bad, like you couldn't go on the roads, like nothing. And so it was like 3 days. On that third day, I woke up to the snowblower in the driveway, and he was snowblowing my car out. He's like, "You gotta get out of here. I've had enough."
72 hours, Joey.
That's how long he was shoveling around the wheels. He was just like, "The roads are open, my friend. We'll see ya." I was like offended, but I was like, I get it. Like, enough of this couch.
Sofa City.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
I know.
That's funny. Well, I'm going to wrap this up with just one last question. Looking back, what would you have done differently, if anything?
I probably would have got divorced faster. I would have been not lazy.
Yeah.
I probably, and I would have done my homework. It's as simple as going to your state's website. And in Massachusetts, it's mass.gov, but you look up your state's official website and just in the search bar, put in divorce and read. I can't believe how easy it is. Now that I look it up, I can't believe how difficult it is to understand, but how much there is to read about it in your face.
Yeah.
So if I could go back, I would do my research, find out what I need to know, and I would get myself a therapist. And it was probably unhealthy for him and I to rely on each other so much. We needed to make a break from each other, and we weren't doing that. You know, that was probably a bad thing for both of us. Like, Mark and I went and met his girlfriend. Like, he was like, it was almost like he was like, "Oh, I need you guys to meet her so you guys can approve of her." And like, that's not, it's like, it's good, but it's not, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's good, I guess, because you know who's around your children.
Oh yeah. We went to their wedding. They came to our wedding. She did my flowers for my wedding. Yeah, they came to.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, they came to our wedding. She did my flowers. They were gorgeous, by the way. She's a great florist. If anybody needs a florist in the area, she's like amazing type florist. And
that's awesome.
So she did our flowers. He was at the venue before we left, and I was like, "Stephen, you got to go up on the ceiling. You have to hang these lanterns from the ceiling on that ladder." And he was like, "What?" And I'm like, "When we get there, make sure the lights are turned down because these lights have to be turned up." And then we went to their wedding. Their wedding was gorgeous. And yeah, like
Wow.
Mm-hmm. It can be normal.
That's so interesting to me because I could not imagine.
I know, it's different. One summer, Mark went over to his parents' house. The whole summer took his kids over to Steve's parents' house to swim in their pool. Everyone's just very nice and very open.
That's good.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know that I would change much about how we acted, but I would definitely, and I think for him too, if we were so close, we should have sat down together and researched everything. Mm-hmm. And we didn't.
Well, yeah, but you had kids and finding that time is hard.
Yeah.
Finding the time, I mean, everybody has the same amount of time in a day, but finding the time to emotionally want to sit down with someone that you're divorcing to look at everything. I mean, that's an emotional armor buildup. Like you gotta put on the armor to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's a good point, Mandy. I never thought of that. That we did have time, but emotionally we probably didn't. There was probably a lot that we were ignoring Mm-hmm. Like, look, we ignored the whole process for years.
Yeah.
Until we both were with people.
It's crazy.
You know what I mean? Like that's how long it took. Like that's so weird when you think about it.
It is, but it's your story. I mean, that's how y'all did it. Because I remember being with you at a retreat, and I think you were saying how the whole family was together. And I remember someone else saying, and I was quietly contemplating getting divorced at the time, so I was always listening. And someone said to you, "That's the way it should be, Joey. You're doing it right."
Yeah. Which is there any right? Like, you don't know what's right or wrong at the time.
You don't know what's right or wrong. Right.
Yeah. But that's just the way we did it. So I had a neighbor, real quick. So I had a neighbor who lived across the street from us for years when I was married, and she was divorced, and she had her kids in the house, and her ex would come over. He'd be mowing the lawn. He'd be picking them up. And for years, him and I thought about divorce. We talked about it on and off. No one knew that, you know?
Of course.
Only we knew that. And I would think like, oh God, like, I don't know why. I just feel like that's the life that I would want. And it sounds terrible from a married person to say, I want this divorced life, right? But she was like, it's great. He comes over all the time. He takes care of things. He knows I'm here alone and I'm not going to mow the lawn. And he does it, you know, for me and for the kids. And she was like, I think it was his girlfriend at the time. His girlfriend's amazing. She goes and she picks up the girls. I can call her and say, hey, I'm still at work. Can you go pick up the girls? And she goes and she picks up the girls. And she was like, it's the best thing. She goes, it's like having an extra mom around.
Love that.
And I was like, I was thinking when I get divorced, because I knew eventually it was going to happen, that's how I'm going to make sure it works out that way. Like, even if it means that sometimes when I say I want to say something, I refrain from saying it, which is very difficult for me. So even if it means that I have to refrain from saying something, then I'll do it. So yeah.
Well, it's very interesting. I never knew that about your divorce. So I learned a lot.
Yep.
So it can be definitely be done to the two extremes.
I think so. I think obviously if you're dealing with a person who's, there's some people are narcissists and some people are just not great people, or some people are abusive. That's not this situation. So if somebody has to deal with it a different way, I'm not saying that you can make it, but there are ways. If it's like you're not dealing with somebody who's like clinically insane,
right? You
can do it this way.
It can be easier.
You can do this the hard way or the not so hard way.
Right. Well, it's a very interesting story, Joey.
Thanks, Mandy.
Thanks for sharing.
Thanks for having me as a guest.
I'd have you as a guest anytime. Speaking of finding guests, if y'all wouldn't mind, listeners, going onto our YouTube channel and dropping us a like or hit the share button and share us with a friend that you think could definitely, just to hear a story if they're going through a hard time or need someone to know that they're not alone. Pick one of our podcasts, share it with them. We've got a lot of great things coming up, and now you know our stories, so feel free. We'd love to have you out there sharing us. Share us. Hit a button.
Hit a button. Oh my God.
Hit a button.
Yeah. Mandy.
Yes, Joey.
I will come back next time on your podcast.
Perfect. I'll see you next Sunday.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
All right, listeners. We'll see you next time on My Ex Appeal.
Thanks to our listeners, sponsors, and our lawyers on My Ex Appeal and Everything Divorce Podcast.